Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Legacy Leaders. I am Scott McMeans, and today I have the pleasure of being with Harley King. Ladies and gentlemen, Harley King is a very interesting gentleman. He has been involved in caring for and marketing to the elderly for over 40 years. Several positions of leadership in human resources, marketing, operations, sales, customer service. He's a guy that speaks and trains in the areas of customer service, sales, and leadership. He's delivered more than 5,000 presentations. Guy's been there, done that. I keep telling you, I'm bringing you people that have been there and done that. Harley is a guy that's been there and done that. He's created a really cool 11-hour customer service training program and built a caring company culture that is championed and carried out throughout the entire organization. He's been doing that for over 30 years. This is a guy that has credibility. And what we're going to talk about today is how to develop and maintain a company culture. That's what Harley and I wanted to talk about. So all companies have a culture. How do you build your culture? Is it a mirror of you as a business owner? Is it a collective of the people that work for you? What's the best culture to create? So I'm going to turn the microphone and camera over to Harley so he can tell us a little bit about his story before we get into all that. So, Harley, sir, microphone and camera are yours.
Hey, Scott, thank you.
My pleasure.
Actually, I want to take for this story, I want to take you all the way back to the mid 1980s with a company called Owens, Illinois. And for those that don't know, Owens, Illinois manufactured glass bottles, and we're probably the leading uh, creator and manufacturer of glass bottles. But something was happening in the 1980s. They saw their business shrinking because of plastic bottles.
Mm.
And we began to move as a society from using glass bottles to plastic bottles. And so they saw it shrinking. And so they began to look around for other things they could invest their time and their money in. And they happened to have on their board a gentleman who owned a small nursing home. He was from Lima, Ohio. And he owned a small chain of about 30 nursing homes. And he convinced them that they ought to consider this business. So they started exploring it and they said, okay, let's get into this, not knowing what they were getting into. And they bought three nursing home chains from different parts of the country and they put them all together. Now, when you buy three different companies and you say, okay, you're one company, now, does that really happen? No, no. You got people out there saying, oh, I am this and this. I am this and this. Nobody identified with the main company. They brought in their own, promoted one of their VPs to become the president of this new company. And one of the first things they did, they hired an outside organization to help them create a vision of what they
Mhm.
wanted this new organization to be. And they put together a task force of nursing home administrators and various different people. And it was led by one of the VPs. And basically, they spent over 500 collective hours creating this vision statement. And it was a doozy. I mean, it created the whole page.
Yeah.
And they introduced that in September of 1987. And everybody got excited. This is what we want to be. This is what we want to become. I joined the company in January of 88 and they handed it to me and they were all excited and enthused. Now, me, I've been around the block a few years at that point. I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. I put it aside. And it wasn't until I began creating our program that the president of the company comes to me and says, I want you to put that vision statement into our program. And it was probably one of the most profound things we did because that vision statement created a
Mhm.
true vision of where we wanted to go as an organization. Now, it had a lot of what I call fancy $25,000 words, but I summed it up very, very simple. We wanted to be the best at taking care of our customers. We wanted to be the best at taking care of our employees. If we did those two things right,
Mhm.
we'd have the profitability that we'd be looking for. But the focus has to be on the people, not on the money. And that's where many people and many organizations get it wrong. You got to focus on the people, the employees and the customers, not just the customers. You got to focus also on the employees.
100%. 100%. I
And
love the
so
idea of it.
go ahead.
No, I love the idea of it. And, you know, one of the things I wrote down, culture and company, do they work because of each other or despite each other? What comes first, right? the chicken or the egg? What is there? And I believe culture is the number one reason why, and companies probably don't know it. It's the number one reason why they are successful or they fail.
Yeah.
And it's an overlooked piece of when there's a merger or an acquisition. It's an overlooked piece when somebody's trying to build a business. And it's one of the most overlooked things when somebody is trying to sell their business, right? You can talk about all the systems that are in place that make it yours, and you're selling your widget producing company, but it has this amazing system. That's what people are buying. But culture never gets talked about in those kind of conversations. So how do you sell a culture, right? It's an
Yeah.
interesting conversation, but I think it is one of the most profound things a company can do is firmly establish a vision and mission, and then a culture of values that you agree to that allows your company to attract people to work for you and attract customers that want to do business with you because you've identified who you are, what you stand for, and how you conduct business. It sounds so simple. Shockingly, how many companies
It's
don't
very
do
hard
that,
to
right?
do. Well, and every company has a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want that culture or don't want that culture, and the leader of the company, the president, CEO, the top management, they influence that culture. And if
Mm-hmm.
you say one thing, oh, we want to be the best at taking care of our customers, and you do something entirely different, they're going to do what you do, not what you say,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to follow that. So we create, and it wasn't set out to be done in terms of creating the culture, but I joined the company. I've been trying to sell the COO of the company a customer service training program. I worked for a small training company at the time, and he thought it would be cheaper to hire me to make it than to buy my product. So,
Wow. Okay.
and he found out later it was probably more expensive, but he got me full time,
Yeah.
and I became the symbol for the culture. Uh, but I joined it in January. They had already had a task force set up. We put together, and in 9 months, we created a training program that was 11 hours. We had an outside um, advertising agency that worked with us, help us with the video. But we would sit in a room. There would be four of us, the two writers, myself, and another person from the company, and we would just bat back and forth ideas. There's a couple things we had to tell stories because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want a talking head. People don't pay attention to talking heads. We needed to tell stories and set it in the context. One of the things that I learned, and this is crucial for your uh, folks, if you're really going to want to set up a culture, you need to understand why people work for you
Mm-hmm.
because those are the people that are most important. Those are the people you're trying to attract. And in healthcare, people get into healthcare because they care. They want to make a difference in the
Yeah.
lives of patients. They want to make a difference in the lives of people. And so we were building a caring culture. Now, that might not work for somebody who's manufacturing something, but what is it? Why do people work for you? Why do people come and why do they spend time in your industry?
Yeah.
And that's what you got to hit on because that's what you got to if you're going to create that culture. It's why do people love your business? Why do they love washing cars? Why do they, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very important. So we spent this 9 months creating this program, shot the video, and we introduced it to the company in September of 1988.
Okay.
Over 300 people in the audience, managers from all over the country, because we had like 120 nursing homes. So we were spread out all over the country. And they gave me 3 hours. And that began the whole process. We introduced it, we showed the pieces of the video, we got people doing things, got them up and about, and then I issued a challenge. Many organizations, when they give a new program, what do? They ram it down your throats, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did not. I said, look, if you want this program, you're going to have to ask for it. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. We're not going to ram it down your throats. What do you think we got? It became a contest. People sent us
Hmm.
cookies and cake and T-shirts and sweatshirts. There was a nursing home in I think it was Springfield, Ohio, that claimed to be the underwear capital of the world, and they sent me a pair of boxer shorts with a logo for our program on the backside. And that is a story in itself because when I actually began to teach the program, guess what I did? I was in a three-piece suit
Don't tell me you wore those.
and I wore the boxer shorts. And think about people, if you know the instructor is standing up at the front of the room and you walk into a training room,
Oh my God. So great.
they people would be, what? If it sets the tone. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things you got to do as a trainer. You got to set the tone for, we wanted to have fun. We wanted to, it's not just we're going to ram this down your throat. And so we had people do all kinds of crazy. We had a lady fly up from Florida. Her mother worked for the airline, so you got free tickets. And she dressed herself as a cat, and she sang us. Uh, I haven't even talked to you about. We have our own song.
Oh God. All right, let's hear it.
No, I had to play it for you. I can't I
You
can't
can't do it.
sing,
That's
but
okay. That's okay.
we can build the dream of a lifetime, and etc. And this was again, there was an influence. I told you about the president wanted the vision statement. The
Mhm.
COO, the guy who was really driving this, wanted his own song. So we hired somebody in Chicago. I spent 2 days in Chicago as this guy was recording our song. He had written and recorded it. And he wanted us to he had seen a speaker once who talked about hugging. He was a social worker and the importance of touch and hugging for the elderly. That
Okay.
one of the things they don't have is as they get older, they don't have that sense of touch because there's not many people around them. And so he saw this. He said, "I want that in the program."
Oh
Now
wow. Okay.
it wasn't something. I mean, this is the late 1980s, early 1900s or 1990s, and we were doing something that even then most people would not do, and that is to encourage hugging in a culture. But that helped create the culture. It's all these different things that we
Oh
did
my God.
began to create so you became more of a family. I mean, for a large organization, at the height of the organization, we had 65,000 employees. It
Whoa.
began to create a very caring, compassionate, family-oriented culture. And
Okay.
and one of the things we did have to stipulate at some point was, look, we have zero tolerance for sexual harassment,
Okay.
and you're fired if you're found out to have sexual harassment. But what we teach in terms of the hugging, there were 7 types of hugs. What we teach in terms of the hugging is not sexual harassment, and it's very
Interesting.
very important for our patients. Now,
No, this is it. So you're establishing guidelines, which is exactly what you need to do. I want to go back real quick because I think it's important when you're talking about instilling a new culture and the training program that you guys developed, robust 11-hour training program, and when you're introducing it, all the great things that grab people's attention. But a couple of points you made, I want to make sure the audience understands. You have to tell a story. Don't ram it down their throat. Don't have a talking head. Okay, find out why the people work for you, whether it's a healthcare industry or
yeah,
any industry.
industry.
You have to understand why they work for you. Is it simply an exchange of time and talent for a wage, or do they really love what they do because of the industry they're in? And I don't care if you're making dog food or you're a nurse, there's something that you love about your job. And there's that passion that comes forward. So you have to find that in your audience. And if they don't fit, they're probably not going to be around much longer because they won't appreciate other people's passion for what's going on and they deselect themselves. The other
Yeah,
one, I really
yeah,
like the point. Sorry, Harley. I just want to clear that out. I like the point about you need to challenge the audience to want to accept this new culture change. Because if you just push it down their throat, they're not going to want it. But the way you guys did it is you made it so they had to come get it. They had to want it, as opposed to, well, they're going to tell us to do it anyway. You now had a competition where people are saying, come here first. I want it first. And because of that, it became systemic across the audience of all the different locations that you had. Everybody wanted it because they did not want to be the one guy on the outside looking in. And that's a huge piece because that's a collective culture that starts from the top down and everybody buys in. And what I think you want to chime in on is those that don't buy in are not going to be around very much longer because they
That,
just don't like it. And
that's
that's fine.
that's what exactly what we found that if you they didn't buy into the culture. I mean, someone would come to the training, they'd give me lip service, and act like they bought into it, but in actuality they didn't. They would leave. They would, as you say, deselect themselves. They would go away. And the people who really here's the key though, by having the contest, we chose the first people who went through the training were people who really, really wanted it. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to make it happen.
Yep.
They're going to get training done. And the very first, what I call train the trainer, happened in January of 89. And we had the very first nursing home put all their employees through it. And I went to first graduation in April of that year.
Wow. Okay.
4 months after and the goal was everybody in the organization was going to go through this.
Yeah.
Okay. I put the president and the vice presidents in through their own special training program.
Hmm.
That was they went through the same thing everybody else did, but it was just for that group. And what it did was it gave them a common language.
There you go.
Okay, and they knew what it was expected of their employees, and they were all speaking the same language. Problem with many programs, sometimes, particularly with culture, they don't put the top leadership through it. The leadership has to be the drivers.
Yes.
They have to be the ones that make it happen. Now, we also had graduations, and when they went through my trainer class, there would be a graduation. And guess what? The president of the company attended those graduations 95% of the time. And he was my keynote speaker. He was my speaker at the graduation. What a greater impact than to say,
Well,
this is important to me.
not only is it important to me, it's important to you as somebody who just went through this. I recognize the sacrifice you made to go through
Right.
this program. Two,
Mhm.
I know now that you've been trained the contribution you're going to make. So I want to respect you for putting yourself through this and appreciate you for what you were about to go do.
Yes.
Right. That's a big piece of this. And one of the things we kind of touched on it earlier, and it makes sense to bring it back. None of this is possible from a cultural change if the leadership tells you to do what they want you to do and they put it on a poster that says what you're supposed to do. And every conversation in an email or email blast that goes throughout the company says what you're supposed to do. But when you're in a meeting, none of the stuff that is supposed to be happening happens, and that's a leadership problem. So the fact that your leadership team bought into this so heavily, they're the ones that want it, push it, and spread it throughout the organization. And if they don't do it the right way, the minions, for lack of a better word, fall they fall away from the message. They fall away from the culture because it doesn't mean anything, right? It's almost as if we're going to change, we're going to make all these new things happen, and then 2 weeks later you're right back to where you were. Well, then why do we do this? But if it's true systemic change that happens throughout the organization, it happens from the top all the way down to the bottom. It has to.
It has to. If the leadership, does not practice it, does not believe in it, it's not going to happen. You will have a few individuals maybe, but it will not happen across the organization. I mean, I had in a prior lifetime to this company, there was a president of the company I worked for was very good at speaking. I mean, he'd come in, he'd give us a rah-rah speech, and we feel good. But as soon as he was out the door, you began to worry because you didn't trust him.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So it doesn't, you can say all the right things, but if you don't practice it, and people know that,
Yeah. Oh,
it's not,
they can sniff it out, Harley, like a bloodhound. They can sniff it out,
yeah,
and it's not because they want to find it. It's just their skepticism at the initial stages of change demand them to find comfort, and their comfort is not doing what they want me to do. So I'm going to find every way I can to find a crack, to find a seam that I can break into and say, I'm going back to my comfort zone. What we need to do as leaders is once we start this cultural change is keep the momentum moving forward, and you're either going to grab as many people along the way that want to be there, or they're simply just going to walk out the door. And I hate to say you get addition through subtraction, but sometimes it's a really good thing to let somebody deselect, because at the end of the day, your vision and mission is driven by people that want to be there passionately for the right reasons. If you've got one guy that's an albatross or an anchor, you're just being dragged to
Yeah.
the finish line. And that's
Yeah.
not what you want. So, as a leader, sometimes the hardest thing to do is recognize here's a list of people that just don't fall in line right now. And we got to do something about them.
Yeah.
And you can go and ask them, right? Do you want to come on board? Do you want, what is it that you're lacking, and help them get back on the gravy train? Or you simply have the conversation and they recognize themselves. Yeah, I just don't believe in what you guys are doing. I can't stay here. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to go.
Yeah. And that is so crucial. But you also mentioned communication. And that's one of the other things that particularly for our organization, when we're spread out all, like 35
Yeah.
different states, and they've got their own little building, we needed communication. So one of the things I developed, I didn't have a budget for it, and I just, you don't have budget for some of these things, you just do them. And basically, I laid it out with a desktop publishing, and I Xeroxed it, and sent out a newsletter. And the newsletter was just started with the first graduation that I attended, and I talked about what they did and what they accomplished and all this kind of stuff. And so it became again filled with stories. That
Mhm.
newsletter, when we finally got it moving after 17 years, I had a budget of $5,000 to print that newsletter. But when I started out, we stapled it and put it out ourselves. you
Yeah,
know, but you got to communicate. You got to keep sending the same message, having the president send the message, having the VP send the message. It's got to be constant. But it's sharing the success stories.
there
This
you
is
go.
somebody who did it. This is somebody who made it happen. And some people stumbled. They didn't really buy into it, but you go with the successes.
Well, there's a level of communication that happens in a newsletter that is unbelievably powerful, not because it comes out every month, but when it comes out, it's consistent and the message stays true to what the overarching messaging is, right? So you
Mhm.
can inform people, give them updates. Um, you can motivate them through watching somebody else do really well, or have a whole section of congratulations and here's the people that went above and beyond. Those are really good things to keep a company culture moving forward. But if you don't showcase appreciation for your team, they're not going to buy into, yeah, you guys are appreciate, you guys don't really appreciate us at all. You have to do that. I think that's one of the key folks or key elements of a newsletter that goes out to folks, because they want to be updated and informed. They want to be congratulated on the things they do well, and they want to be motivated for the next month. So the newsletter accomplishes that, all under the arch of this is our message of culture. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, and one of the other things I did, this was back in the day, we had voicemail. We were what I call a voicemail company.
Yeah.
This is before email for the most part. And uh, I know that the people out in the field sometimes feel disconnected from the home organization. And so I also believe in quotes. So I would put on a Monday morning motivational quote. And that's all it was. There were people that didn't listen. I mean, I had a lady one time call me, a administrator called me up and said, "Hey, uh, I missed your message, or I deleted it. I didn't want to listen to it." Well, I had sent her another message besides that. I'd left a phone message about something else I wanted, and she deleted the wrong message. Uh, but the people who needed it, listen. And some people say, I needed it this week. Again, it's continuing the culture, it's continuing to motivate your people, it's continuing to keep them excited and doing various different things. It's an ongoing process.
Well, you said consistency is key, right? If
Yes.
if we're going to start this and everybody believes it, the leadership team has the opinion that we make this change to our culture and install this culture, we are going to be successful. Why would you ever go backwards? Right? We're all in. We all buy into this is what we're trying to do. This is our new culture. This is our new approach. We are all aligned towards the vision and mission of this company. Let's be consistent from this point forward on our communication and our actions. The actions are the thing that really makes the biggest difference because I can tell you, being in Fortune 200 companies, being in local family owned businesses, there is a difference between telling people what you want them to hear and doing something completely different.
Yeah.
And it becomes lip service. It becomes to the point where, all right, well, this is the fourth time you've said something in the last 2 months. I have no idea what's going on, but all right, I guess that's what we're doing now. Instead of saying no, let's stick to it and let's move forward because this is what we truly believe is the next step for our organization. I wholeheartedly believe businesses can make a cultural change, not overnight, but they can make a cultural change for the positive. Really cool example. It's not one of my customers, but a friend of mine told me a story about a dog food manufacturing company. And they had a bunch of people, they were going through and doing a survey. And one of the gentlemen who's a tow motor operator was asked, "What do you do here?" And his answer was, "Oh, I move the pallets around, and that's what I do." By the time he was done with a cultural shift, they went and asked him again, "What do you do here?" He goes, "My job is I'm the guy responsible for getting the food we make onto the truck that delivers it to the stores to make sure that dogs in the area get fed every day. That's my job." Okay, now think about as benign as dog food, Harley, he has now had a different mindset to I don't just drive a tow motor.
Yeah.
My cultural
Mhm.
connection to what I do is I make sure the food we make gets onto the trucks that deliver it to the stores that'll sell it so dogs across the region get fed every day.
And
That's an amazing transformation.
I bet you the people who work for that company are dog lovers.
Oh, I'm sure of it. Yeah. Why
Okay.
would you not work? Yeah. How could you work there and not be a dog lover? That's a
Well,
great point.
you could work there, and but if you again going back to what I said, what motivates people to work there? And in that case, it's the dogs. So if you put whatever you're trying to get them to do in context of what it's good for the dogs, or in my case, it's good for the patients,
Yes.
they will buy into it.
Yeah.
But if you say, "Oh, it's good for the company," who cares? It's
Yeah.
but if you get them to buy in, taking care of your customers, and getting them to buy into the culture, you're going to have the profitability. It
Yeah.
will be there.
Well,
But
there's such a vacuum that gets created that you literally pull profit and revenue into that void because you've created it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Now,
What?
the
Go
other
ahead.
thing they need to understand is if you're a fairly good sized company, it's going to take a while to move that ship.
Yeah.
In other words, the culture doesn't change overnight.
Hmm.
You have to understand it's like a battleship. It only moves a small bit at a time, but you will get there.
Hmm. Well, there's the old adage, how do you need an elephant?
Yeah, one
One,
bite at a time.
one bite at a time. How do you turn a ship around a buoy? One propeller move after the next one. It's just, you got to keep going, right? But the answer is you keep going with consistency. Because if you're not being consistent in what you're doing, you lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish. And then nobody takes you seriously.
Yeah,
So the
exactly.
consistent part is really what makes that
Yeah,
profound.
yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
That's the difference
That's
maker.
that is very true.
When we're talking about all these different cultural shifts that a company can go through, what's the most profound change that you've ever seen in a company outside the one that you built the 11-hour program for? Is there one cultural change that you witnessed, whether it's through the educational work you do or a company you work for? What is one of them that is like, dang, I want that people should understand it's really possible?
I don't think of one of where it was successful. What I tend to see is where it's not successful.
Okay.
You and I have, I think, talked at one point about mergers and acquisitions
Yeah.
and the impact on that on culture.
Mhm.
Even in our large company where we had a culture, we merged with and acquired another company that was a little bigger than us, and they had a different culture. And I'll take you back to, I told you we were a voicemail culture. The CEO would listen to things on the voicemail. The other company that we acquired were an email culture. If they didn't see it in writing, they didn't do it.
Crazy.
Okay. And when we merged and you had leaders who were over both,
Hmm.
that was a problem. Because if it was a leader who was an email culture, he'd do everything by email. If it's somebody who was a voicemail culture, he would do everything. And so it took a while but it's little things
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
I mean, what I've seen is mergers, acquisitions are very, very destructive to that culture. You're going to have to create a new culture.
Well, okay, that's what I was just writing down. My note is nuance is unbelievably powerful. No matter how big or small, nuance is really a powerful tool or a powerful impediment to what you want to have done. And it takes somebody willing to break it to start something new,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
And it's not an easy thing to do, right? Because mergers and acquisitions, think about the company that bought the other one. They think, well, we have the power. We're the better company because we bought you. But then their culture isn't necessarily the right culture. So you really need to have leadership at the top that recognizes that culture worked for you. This culture worked for us. What are we going to do to create something new that works for both of us?
Yes.
And I know there's a simple conversation of there's an email versus a voicemail crowds, but how do they coexist? They just have to coexist, right? So you have to have somebody that willing to step in and say, all right, you are going to get information on email and voicemail all the time. That's just how we're going to do it from now forward. But think about it. When it's consistent, it just keeps going and people now buy into it and now they're a part of it. Now the culture is I get emails and voicemails on stuff. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Until obviously voicemail goes away because it's an older technology, but still
Yeah.
the concept is, right?
After 6 years after the merger, yeah, the it was all oh, it was an email culture. The voicemail was gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But okay, put it this way, Harley. You could take any principled discipline in an organization, say it's blank culture versus blank culture. How do you merge them together? You have to find a way to coexist until one either dominates or the leader, the leadership team, figures out this is the culture they want. And when I'm going to go all the way back to my original question is it the vision of the leader that is the ultimate culture, or is it a collective of people giving their ideas and thoughts about values and creating a culture together? Which one is it? Or is it a combination of the two? I have my own opinions. I'm curious to learn yours.
Uh, looking at this experience, it was the original vision that they had was not even created by the CEO. It was created by a group of employees within the organization.
Yeah.
But what we did then was we sold that vision statement. We talked about it every time, and we said, one of the things I told them is this is the most important document we have in the
Mhm.
organization. It's more important than the medical records. It's more important than billing statements because it's the document that binds us all together and makes us one organization. So yes, that vision is very important. I don't think it necessarily has to come from the CEO, the president. I think it could come from a group of people that really understand the business and
Yeah.
understand the industry and understand what you're attempting to do. Because sometimes, again, if it comes from just the one individual, unless it's a very small company, if it comes from just one individual, it's his vision. It's not everybody's vision. And what you want
Yeah.
is you've got to work to get everybody to buy into that vision.
Yeah. So, and I 100% agree with that. My point, or the reason I brought that up, is for small business owners. Let's say I run an HVAC company. My vision and mission for my company is mine, and I'm going to grab people that gravitate to me because of my vision and my mission and my values, because of my individual contribution to the business. Ultimately, the people that work for me will now contribute to differences or additive values that we will bring into our culture, but it has to start with the owner for a small business versus a big company. Like that's why I want to make the separation because I truly believe leadership, whether it's owner or part of the leadership executive team, they are the ones that start the vision and then it collectively works. When it comes to a small business, it's only the owner that really has a chance to do that stuff initially because he's the only guy working there, right?
Yeah,
So
because
it's an interesting thought
He,
process, but
he
it's a
needs
group
to drive
conversation.
it.
Yeah,
He
he needs
needs
to
to
drive it.
drive the culture. It needs, but he needs input. Bec- if you're not listening to your people,
You're missing.
you're gonna miss a lot. So
You're
you also
missing a
got to
lot.
listen to them. But if you're only at like 4 or 5 people, then yeah, you're going to have to drive that culture. But they're going to watch you. People
100% they're going
are
to want you.
people watch you all the time.
I mean,
Oh,
you can't say I want to run an ethical company, and then on the other side you're skimping the books and using fake receipts for stuff, right? You can't have
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
So your team will follow through on your own actions. My main point on that was making sure that there's a difference in the way you install a culture from a small business that's owned by one person versus a
Mhm,
business that has
mhm,
multiple leadership levels because they are very similar, but the business owner is the one that starts it because that's his vision because it's his company. But
yeah,
nonetheless, once you start with a vision and mission, then it's a collective additive of values that makes it work because now we're all working to build the same culture. And that's what I think is beautiful. One piece of advice I've always had to folks was when you start a culture, think of the 7 things you want to be in your value proposition for your culture and leave 3 of them out and ask the team to produce 10, and they'll give you the 3 that we're missing, right? It's going to happen that way.
Yeah. People that are really committed to the industry will come up with the same things that you have.
100 because they want to be there for the right reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, my man, we have been talking for over 35 minutes, almost
Oh,
40.
really?
Yeah, it's gone by real quick. This is one of the longest ones I've done, but I think the commitment to the conversation was important because culture, in my opinion, is one of the most
Yeah.
overlooked and underutilized functions of a business to make a difference. So I want to thank you, Harley, for
You're
being on the
welcome.
show today and a great conversation. Can't wait for people to get a chance to look at this and learn as much as they can from it. So thank you very much.
Thank
We'll
you.
see. We'll see all at the next episode of Legacy Leaders. Bye now.